So we are in the period of the unfoldment of the final war. And this final war is also the original war that is memorialized in the Bhagavad Gita and in many other of the ancient texts that deal with the transformation of consciousness from an impure mental state and the overcoming of the resistance of that state to the truth, to the beauty, to the love, to the power of the real, and the victory of God consciousness over that of the ego that has become demonic in its antagonistic and negative nature of darkness in terms of thoughts and emotions and beliefs and attitudes, and a return of the blissful light of God. And because the world operates on the fractal system, if you will, of self-similarity at every level of consciousness, what is going on at the macrocosm in the global geopolitical arena that is visible to some extent to everyone is not different from what is going on at every other level, whether it's institutional, communal, or your own individual mind, if you still have an individual mind. And as we have said before, the ego mind tends to either move too fast or too slow. And we can see that at the geopolitical level in this new theater of war that has opened up between Israel and Iran and may soon include other parties in a very direct way. That one party is perhaps too passive, too slow, too naive, too afraid, and too trusting, and another too aggressive, too quick, too filled with guile and deceptiveness for its own good. And so you have this situation where all parties are making mistakes, tactical, strategic, political, diplomatic, because there are internal conflicts within each government. There are factions that are hawks, and there are doves, and there are those who are in favor of lining up all the ducks before you start shooting, and those who say go for it while the iron is hot, etc. And those who are more concerned with the economic than with the military. And all of the various factions and their conflicting drives have an effect of either producing a deadlock or an overly aggressive reaction to events that ends up with additional senseless slaughter of the innocents and destruction, senseless destruction of infrastructure and of civilian life. And And so we are seeing all of these messy approaches to a conflict that really, of course, to any sane mind should not have happened in the first place, and is nothing short of a criminal activity that will very likely not gain the goals of any of the parties, but that there is no way back. And in the same way, there is no way back for any of us on our own internal attempt to overcome our inner conflicts and incoherences, because life in that state has become unmanageable, has become too filled with suffering that has become or will soon become intolerable. And then one will be forced to choose between the lower death drive and the upper. But in the geopolitical realm, the lower death drive is, of course, the one that has already been chosen. Hopefully the yogis will not make the same choice on their individual levels of struggle against the regressive tendencies of the ego, to choose the illusion of agency, the illusory power of the limited ego, the illusory security and defense mechanisms, and the illusory projections that support its patterns of repetitive suffering and self-defeat. So this is the situation that everyone must face internally and externally. And because events are accelerating rapidly, and in fact are out of the control of any of the parties, in the same way, your own mind is not under your control. If you are in the ego, if you are identified with the mental apparatus of the ego, the thoughts arise even when they are unwanted, even when there is a desperate need for peace and for meditative silence. It's hard to come by because the mind simply does not obey. It rebels against the pseudo-authority of the I thought, and simply creates more impotence, dissatisfaction, and a sense of being out of control, and in a therefore a very purposeless, nihilistic attitude toward the world that is being depicted by an out-of-control mental apparatus. And its sanskaras from the past cannot easily be overcome, whether those sanskaras are more of the type of anger or of fear or of grief or of anxiety or of some other emotional tendency or tendency of hysterical meltdown. But these sanskaras once they are loose and out of control, tend to gain more and more traction and more power. And if the ego is not leashed by an awareness, an awakening of the soul that countervails and loses interest in the ego's machinations and turns to God with devotion and surrender, the ego tends to bring about the worst possible scenario that ultimately enacts its worst fears and its most secret jouissance that turns out not to be what it claimed to offer the ego, and results in a kind of internal state of ruin. And we see many people suffering from that kind of ruin, whether it's because they acted out in ways that then they could not morally accept that they actually did what they did, and they cannot forgive themselves, and they can end up in very self-traumatizing and even suicidal kinds of attitudes. So the lower death drive is much more powerful than most people think today. And it's very easy to be taken by surprise when it erupts if one has not opened to the higher power of the presence of the self and surrendered one's agency, one's will to that power to make the decisions and the way in which life unfolds. But this too is a matter of grace, not of the ego's own willpower. And so everything comes down to grace, and grace comes down to the willingness to love and to renounce the identification with the ego.